you're just settling in, you're going to want to come to find a comfortable seat. We're going to be doing our pranayama practice, and we're going to do something a little bit new or different today. So if you need to use a tissue to blow your nose, now might be a good time, or to have one handy. And anything that you need to be comfortable to sit. It won't be too long today, maybe 15 or 20 minutes at the very most, depending on how much I talk. We'll always start with Kapalabhati. Actually, now that I've said always, I'll take that back. I want to retract that statement. Most often we'll use Kapalabhati. There are other cleansing pranayamas that I haven't introduced yet, but we'll do those on another day or time. Today we're going to do Kapalabhati to start. Kapalabhati is done because it's a cleansing pranayama, which means you are cleansing the nostrils, clearing them out, getting the belly stimulated, getting the lungs cleaned out from down low, and then after that pranayama, you're ready to move into some of the other techniques, just because you're cleaned out and woken up. One of the things I read recently that I thought was really important to maybe mention, especially for today, is we live in a world with gravity. Obviously, we all know this. So if you think about your lungs being an organ, obviously, that's very vascular, it's very moist with all of the tissues that are in the lungs. So the tissue that is in the lower part of the lungs has more pull of gravity. It's going to be denser tissue near the bottom of the lungs, just because it's closer to the earth. Most of our day we're standing upright or sitting upright. When we lie down at night to sleep, more of an even spread, but the density of the fluid in our tissues would be more to the back body, or depending on how we sleep for the most amount of time. So just know that throughout the day, the concentration of fluid and the pull of gravity is different at different areas of the lungs. Excuse me. So when we start to think about pranayama and our breathing practices, it would make sense that we want to stimulate or move the tissue that is the lowest part of the lungs for the longest period of time. So if we spend most of our days sitting or standing, upright obviously, then the tissues at the bottom of our lungs are going to need to be moved or fleshed out more, in my mind. Which is why in our yoga practices, like our asana practices, inversions are really important. Downward facing dog, forward folds, headstand, handstand, anything that gets our head below our heart. Because now the tissues at the top of the lungs has time to have that same amount of concentration of fluid and that same experience of being pulled by gravity. It's really interesting to think about, actually. It's just something to be aware of. And also the correlation between our heart and our brains. Our brains obviously being very important. Our hearts are always having to pump our circulation, our nutrients, our tissue fluid up when we're sitting or upright throughout most of our day. Of course, that changes when we're lying down or when we're inverted or upside down. It shifts, it changes, the body has to adapt. So I think it's really important that we just know that these practices are for a reason, that we're going upside down for a reason, that we are sleeping for a reason, and more than we think there's other things going on. So with Kapalabhati, this forceful exhale out through the nose, of course, cleaning the sinuses, cleaning out the lungs, but also it's this pumping action in the low belly. So if you think of like a rag that has more moisture at the bottom, you're holding it and you're kind of squeezing it, and you're trying to move that tissue and the fluid up and around so that it has a chance to recirculate, or so that it doesn't become so saturated for such a long period of time and gets flushed out. And that's why we do the practice. One of the reasons. And that's just a lot of my own understanding of how the body works, so correct me if I'm wrong. Let's start with our Kapalabhati. Nice tall spine. We don't have to lean back for Kapalabhati. We can be upright, and any shape that makes it more comfortable for you. It's going to be the little forceful exhales out through the nose with the pumping action in the low belly. And it happens pretty naturally. You don't have to force too much of it unless you feel that there's a benefit for you to have a little bit stronger pumping action. And you'll know this just by paying attention to your own body and how you feel after and during. Left hand will be in a mudra of choice, perhaps Yana mudra. Right hand can also be in a mudra. Okay, so we'll do 3 rounds of 55, and at any time during the 55, you need to take an extra breath and then you restart. Make sure you do so. Try not to go too fast. And the tendency sometimes to go too fast, and then we feel like we can't get enough inhale, and then we can't exhale anymore. It feels awkward and forced. It should be quite natural. So take your time. It doesn't have to be at the same count as me. If you're a little bit less or a little bit more, totally fine. So 3 rounds of 55. The cueing will be inhale fully, exhale fully, half an inhale, and then you start with the puffs of air out through the nose, little pumping action in the belly. Let's get started. Inhale fully, exhale fully, half an inhale to start, inhale, exhale, half an inhale, one more round of 55. Inhale, exhale, last round of 55. Inhale to start. Inhale, exhale. Ooh, just pausing. You may feel the tone happening through the lower belly, through the sideways, the low back. You may need a tissue again for the nose. We're going to move into our breath practice, and today I was going to introduce a new concept, and this is the idea of thinking about your lungs as 3 different compartments. Well, lower lungs, middle lungs, upper lungs. The lungs, of course, are in the torso, and in yogic philosophy, there are the chakras that are also running along the nervous system or through the torso. So they're interwoven. and I won't get too much into the chakras today, but I just want to talk about the 3 sections of the lungs, and that most of the time, for most of us, we breathe primarily in the upper lungs and maybe the middle lungs. And it's usually with a bit more effort or awareness that we breathe into the lower lungs, unless we're doing something that requires it. Running, something that's quite cardiovascular, where we really need to get the breath moving in and out, we're probably accessing the lower lungs a little more often. But throughout our day-to-day, kind of moving around and about, we tend to breathe quite shallow. So we need to train the body to breathe deeper and fuller. And you can do that by thinking about the 3 sections of your lungs and making an effort to utilize all 3 sections. So we're going to do something super simple. We're just going to be breathing in and out through the nose, but we're going to be thinking about the 3 sections of the lungs. And we're going to be doing it upright. Normally we would teach this lying down, but I thought today we'll try it upright and see how it goes. So what you're going to do is you're going to be inhaling, and you're going to be thinking about filling up lower lungs, not that low, lower lungs, middle lungs, upper lungs. As you exhale, you're going to empty from lower, middle, upper. And that might be an effort involved in the exhaling part, because we might want to think about our lungs more like a cup of water, where we're filling it up from the bottom from the top, and then we're emptying it from the top to the bottom. But with our lungs, we're going to actually switch that. We want to have an equal amount of time with the breath in the lungs in each section equal. If we breathe into the lower lungs first, and we breathe out through the lower lungs last, that would mean that the air or the breath has had the most amount of time at the lower lung level. And the lower lung level corresponds with our chakra that is associated with ego. We don't want to feed our ego any more than it's already kind of manipulating our lives. We would rather have an equal amount of time through all of the lung compartments and the chakras associated with each compartment. So we're going to try it. This is simply a mind exercise. It'll help you to stay focused during your breath practice, and it'll give you just something new to think about. It may take a little bit of practice to not have that glass of water image in our mind, but instead think of 3 separate compartments: lower, middle, upper for inhale, exhale, lower, middle, upper. And then we will do that for about 3 minutes and see how it goes. Have a comfortable seat. You do want to have the slight leaning back just until you feel the firmness below your navel. Hands can rest in a mudra or simply on your knees or your thighs. Eyes can be downcast or closed. It'll probably help you stay focused. We're going to take nice, slow, deep inhale through the nose. We're going to concentrate on filling up the lower lungs, middle lungs, upper lungs. As you exhale, think about emptying out lower lungs, middle lungs, upper lungs. And you're going to continue with that pattern. Now, lower lungs will be associated with the space of the belly just above the navel. Middle lungs will be associated with how much your rib cage can expand. Upper lungs is felt almost primarily up underneath the collarbones. It's quite high. Inhaling, fill up lower, middle, upper. Exhale from lower, middle, upper. can allow your breath to return to its natural state. Let's take a few moments to move around. So our pranayama practice has lots of benefits. It increases our ability to concentrate, because we'll have something to think about. We have a technique that we're having to stay with. Even with the Kapalabhati, if you're counting, sometimes I get to a certain number and my mind flutters off and I actually forget that I'm supposed to be counting, and then I have to try to catch back up. So it's an exercise in focus and concentration, but sticking with the technique. And there's a lot of science to support the knowledge that wherever your mind goes, the breath of the prana follows. Prana follows. Breath is different, but if we can learn to concentrate, to keep our awareness on the breath, and to maybe do like the exercise of the 3 parts of the lungs, then we're bringing increased awareness to what we're doing, but we're also bringing like a physiological effect. Whenever we think about a part of the body, increased circulation goes there. The body, the physical body, responds to what our mind is doing, where it's taking its attention, and it can be very healing. So that's our food for thought for today. You can use that technique of the 3 parts of the lungs anytime you want to calm the nervous system or work on your focus or concentration. It's a beautiful practice you could do for however length of time you can, before a meditation or for a relaxation practice. Thanks for letting me babble on and listening, and I hope to guide you again soon. Namaste.